Okay, good evening. It's been a few days since I recorded a video, but I'm back now. And I got a poll question. The poll question is Nick Sirianni a Howie Roseman puppet? That's my question right there. And now one encouraged me to get to that poll question. I'll get to that in a moment. So what I'm gonna do for this one here, gonna talk a little bit about the NFL. First, I got the Brian Dawkins shirt on for this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about specifically the Philadelphia Eagles. For my last couple live streams, I talked about the NFL. I was talking about NFL free agency as a whole. This time, though, I'm going to talk specifically about the Philadelphia Eagles a little bit, mainly Howie Roseman. Then a little bit later in the stream, I'm going to switch gears to the NBA playoff discussion and give a little mini preview for the Sixers Nets game, which I'm not the Sixers Nets, the Sixers Bucks game at the Wells Fargo Center tonight, 7 p.m. Now, I'm not going to be doing a live stream for that. What I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to do a brief live stream, give my thoughts and takeaway from the game. I might talk about some of the other games that are going on in the NBA. So that's going to be a live stream tomorrow at noon. I haven't officially created it yet, but I got another one coming tomorrow at noon. But let's get right into this one first. Okay, so we're going to start with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this free agency for me, it's been a disappointment. It has been a disappointment. Now, there are some good things that have come out of this. So I'll get to that, get through that. And then I'll explain why it's disappointment. So the first couple things that are good, though. We signed Hassan Reddick. That's obviously a good one. We signed a good run stopper and a good pass rusher. So that's good right there. We need some help specifically with the pass rush. So it's good that we get Hassan Reddick in, someone who has credibility, who still has some mileage left in the tank. He's not an old guy in his late 30s, still in his 20s. He still has some time left. And plus, he's a Temple alum. So he's close to home. I mean, he's happy to be back with the Eagles. You can tell by some of his interview. I know he saw an interview he did with Dave Spadaro. It's on the Philadelphia Eagles website. He would talk about he took great pride in being drafted in the first round in that 2017 draft in Philadelphia when he was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. So he took great pride being drafted in the city of Philly. Even though he wasn't drafted by the Eagles, he took great pride in being drafted in Philadelphia. So obviously he has a special connection with Philadelphia, which makes him a good fit for this Philadelphia Eagles team. So that's a good thing right there. And bringing back Jason Kelce for another year. I mean, who else are you really going to bring in as a center that's ready for this season? So I get why they did that. Now, I do think in the draft, they should maybe try to go for a center maybe in the later rounds in hope of finding Jason Kelce's successor. But obviously, having to bring it was a good move based off the situation they're in to bring Kelce back. Because who else do they really have at center for this upcoming season that can be credible? I mean, you think about it, there's no one. So that's a good move right there, bringing him back. Of course, we made another good move a few days ago where we signed another good signing. Of course, we also had that. What else? I forget what was his name. Who's the linebacker we signed for the Chargers? Who's from the Chargers? I forget his name right off the top. I remember I recorded a video about it on some. Who was it? Oh, yeah, Kaiser White. That's right, Kaiser White. We got Kaiser White, linebacker. I made a short video about that Saturday. I said that was a good signing. Good. Kaiser White's off a good season with the Chargers. So that helps our linebacking core. You got Hassan Reddick and Kaiser White. So that should hopefully fix up that linebacking core. So far, that looks good. So there were some good moves made during this free agency. Now bringing back Boston Scott for another year. I mean, he's a solid back, but it's not the best option in the world. I mean, it's not a bad thing necessarily. Boston Scott's not necessarily a bad back, but it's not like the greatest signing in the world either to re-sign him. And we did re-sign Greg Ward Jr., which I mean, I don't know why. Thing is with Greg Ward Jr., he hasn't really done much for us. See, Greg Ward Jr. hasn't, I mean, the past year 2019 when he filled and came off the practice squad, he helped out. But specifically the last 2 years, he hasn't been much. He hasn't been productive. And last season, he was mostly a non-factor, Greg Ward. So I don't know why we're bringing him back if he was a non-factor last season, expect him to be more productive this year. So I don't know what they're thinking right there. I mean, and the reason I don't see them doing much with Greg Ward this year. So I don't really think that's a good signing right there. And obviously, we got Zach Pascal, which that's not a bad signing at all. It's a solid sign, but I feel like we got him on a 1-year deal. But I feel like Howie was taking Zach Pascal, a guy who was the cheapest option available for a 1-year deal on the market. And with all due respect to the guy, he's a solid receiver. Was that really the best option we can get right now? And plus, he's a slot receiver, just like Quez Watkins. And I'm thinking they need to get J.J. and Jalen Reagor out of the lineup, if not completely off the team. And then, try to incorporate Quez Watkins more in the and see what he does with them higher roles. See what he does with more playing time. And see whether or not Quez Watkins is a guy worth keeping. That's what I'm thinking something they should do. But the thing with Zach Pascal is he's a slot receiver like Watkins, so he'll take away some playing time. So that's one of the problems they run into. And Zach Pascal is a solid option. It's better than Jalen Reagor and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. But is that really the best option we could have got on the market, though? Is it really the best option we could have got? Couldn't we have gone with the money for a Tavares Landry? I mean, couldn't we have at least tried for that? I mean, we couldn't have at least tried to make a push for Allen Robinson? Did we try to make a push for those guys? I mean, I didn't see anything indicating that we were trying to. I mean, it would have been one thing if we had tried to make offers to Allen Robinson and tried to make offer to Tavares Landry and he rejected. And then we went with Zach Pascal because we couldn't get the other guys. That would be one thing. It would be one thing if we at least tried to get some more the better receivers in free agency, but we went with Pascal because we couldn't get those guys because they rejected our offers. That'd be one thing. From what I'm hearing, they didn't even try to make all these top guys offers. To me, I feel like it's a cheap move by Howie. He's trying to take the best free agent wide receiver that's cheap. And obviously, now granted, being cheap does help keep us under the salary cap, which is a good thing. However, it doesn't really help you win. If you want to, you got to take chances on paying some of these guys. You want to bring in top wide receivers. You got to be willing to at least pay somebody. And that's just the way this is the way it is playing the free agency game. You got to be willing, if you want the best guys in there, you got to be willing to pay them the money. It's the way it works in any sport, period. I feel like Howie's missed out on that. And obviously, the worst one of all is Derek Barnett being re-signed. Why is he being re-signed? Ask ourselves, beside, what is the biggest thing he's done for the Eagles beside recovering the fumble in Super Bowl 52 that Brandon Graham forced, by the way? Beside making the recovery after Brandon Graham's the one who forced the fumble. What has he done big beside recovering it for Derek Barnett? Go ahead, I'll wait. Everyone watching, I'm sure you're probably thinking the same thing I am. He hasn't done anything significant beside that. So I get a ton of penalties. And now this ties into my poll question. Because I saw something earlier today. I saw on Twitter. I'm not going to play the video. I'm not going to share my screen, but I'm going to play the audio. So I saw it on Mitch Kovsky, MK's live stream. Or not his live stream, on his Twitter. Posted a video from the Philadelphia Eagles page. It was so shout out to MK for that. So, it was from the Philadelphia Eagles post. It was Coach Sirianni on at FCox91 and Derek Barnett. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I had rough patches last season, right? Jalen had rough patches last season. We believe in those guys. We believe in Fletcher Cox. We believe in Derek Barnett. Not only of the type of player they are, like Fletcher Cox is still dominant in the run game. He's still a dominant player in the run game that can stop the run, and he still can get after the passer. Derek Barnett is everything that embodies what we want in the characteristics of a player. He's tough. He's competitive. He's got high football IQ.
Okay, I'm going to stop that right there. High football IQ from Derek Barnett, who, as MK put it in his retweet, gets more penalties than he had sacks. More penalties than sacks. And the fact that he said that right there, Sirianni, that guy has a higher football IQ, the guy who gets more penalties than sacks. That to me right there makes me feel personally that Sirianni's a Howie puppet. Because, I mean, this goes all the way back to week 17 of the 2020 season when we had nothing to play for against Washington. We were still in the game going into the fourth quarter, and Doug Peterson decided to bench Hurts and put Nate Sudfeld in, or as I call him that night, Nate Tankfeld. So he decides to put him in, figuring they have nothing to play for. They lose, they get a higher draft pick. And then notice shortly after that, Peterson gets fired when all the reports were speculating that Peterson was wanted the higher pick, but Howie didn't want to play the tank game. And reportedly, Peterson was tired of basically doing what Howie tells him to do. So then he gets fired after that. And I had speculated for a bit that there was something to it about Peterson getting tired of being, just running around doing whatever Howie wanted him to do, basically being a puppet. And then shortly after that, he gets fired after he finally decides, you know what, screw it. I feel it's better to get the number 6 pick. Let's just get the number 6 pick. And then he gets fired shortly after that to bring in Nick Sirianni, who some of his comments have been questionable in press conferences. And that one right there, that comment about Derek Barnett having a high football IQ confirms it to me. At least to me. Now, you guys, you can definitely vote on the poll. Give me your opinion whether or not you think Sirianni is a Howie puppet. But feel free to vote and give me your opinion. Now, I think personally that he is. I mean, I always had this feeling that Howie was a guy who wanted puppets around that were just going to tell him what he wanted to hear. Basically, yes men around him. I always felt like that. I had my suspicions of that. But recently, some of the stuff I'm seeing recently is finally I feel confident enough to come on camera and just say it, that yes, I feel like Howie Roseman likes a bunch of yes people around him. And that's exactly what it is right now here with Nick Sirianni. That's the way I see it. Yay, J Taco for Life. What's that? Thank you for joining the stream. Right now, I'm talking about Howie Roseman right now and how I feel like he wants a bunch of yes men around him. So, yeah, right. And I was kind of played, right. And it's just that comment right there from Sirianni in that interview he did talking about Derek Barnett having a high football IQ. It confirms, it feels like to me, he's defending Derek Barnett, defending his re-sign because that's what Howie Roseman wants. That's what it feels like to me. And I feel like it goes all the way back to what happened in week 17 in 2020, how Peterson didn't want to tank, or Peterson wanted to tank, Howie didn't. So Peterson gets fired. He should show in the door a week later. Then Sirianni comes in. So far, it sounds like a lot of the stuff he's saying in press conferences is going right along with what Howie Roseman wants. And that's one of the problems right there. When the person all the way at the top wants a bunch of yes people that are just going to tell them everything they want to hear, that becomes a problem. Because then you're just doing basically right. Because then what I was saying, right? They're just basically going to tell that person everything they want to hear. No one's going to tell them, hey, we got to do things differently. They're never going to hear the truth. They're never going to hear enough people coming forward and saying, hey, look, this isn't working. We have to do something different. And that's the worst part about a leader who wants a bunch of yes people around them. A bunch of people that aren't going to tell them what they need to hear, aren't going to have the courage to stand up and say, no, this isn't the way we should do it. We need to do this instead. And I feel like that's what's going on with the Eagles. That's why year after year after year, Howie Roseman's always made these cheap signings over the years. Like you got re-signing guys who need to go, like Jason Peters. Even Jason Peters at the end, they just kept re-signing him to those 1-year deals. I mean, Peters was great for the Eagles, but toward the end, it was becoming obvious that they needed to move on from it. It was one of those things like, okay, Jason Peters, thank you for your work. Thank you for your service in helping this offensive line, but best of luck in your future endeavors. And they weren't doing it. They waited till last year when he had already overstayed his welcome by a few years. It felt like he was, and always, you can see, it's always like these cheap options, I feel like Derek Barnett's obviously a cheap option because his value in the free agency market is low because he gets more time getting penalties than sacks. That's why his value on the free agency market is low. If he had value, he probably would have gotten signed by somebody else by now. But obviously he didn't. That's why he was still in the market for the Eagles to re-sign him. All right, another good move. I forgot to mention I was going through my good moves a few minutes ago during free agency, re-signing Fletcher Cox. But so far throughout free agency with Howie Roseman, he's made some good moves, but those good moves are re-signing guys we already have. And like, okay, guys like Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, obviously we need Jason Kelsey back for the immediate future until we find a suitable replacement. Obviously, Fletcher Cox still worth the time, still worth the money investing into him. But these are guys we already have, though. If we're looking to upgrade and get better, they should have really taken a chance on trying to get a Tavares Landry or a Tyrann Mathieu. Whatever happened to that? I mean, did the Eagles even try it? I mean, did they? Did Howie even try to offer him? I mean, I don't know what happened. I mean, I don't know. Did he even try to offer him and he felt that Tyrann wanted too much money? I mean, did he? I mean, I don't know what's actually going on, but it's like, why is it they always feel like they always take the cheapest options? Because Howie's always trying to stay under the cap. I feel like he's too afraid to take chances on big name free agents in case they don't work out. Because he's afraid that he's going to lose his job. I think he keeps going with the cheap route because he knows staying under keeping the salary cap in order, keeping the Eagles on good terms of the salary cap is the one thing that's allowed him to keep his job for this long. So that's why he continues to be cap oriented. Because Howie Roseman is clearly more cap oriented than he is building a winning team oriented. And that's the main reason he still has his job. And I think Howie Roseman knows deep down inside that that's the reason he has his job. So he wants to keep doing that so he can keep his job. You know, he figures if I keep the Eagles on good standing with the cap year after year, if they're at least in contention for the playoffs year after year, I'll still be able to keep my job. And I feel like that's what Howie Roseman's mindset is, at least to some extent. I feel that plays a significant role in a lot of the decisions he makes, where he makes a lot of these cheap signings, short one-year deals, but never makes any big moves. He hasn't really made a big move in a long time. I mean, even Hassan Reddick's the biggest moves he made thus far in that free agent this offseason. That's the biggest move he's made from a player standpoint. The real biggest move is a 3-year extension Howie got. And as far as, we already see what's going on for agency with Howie Roseman. It's disappointing. And of course, there is some optimism. Oh, we got 3 picks in the draft. Yeah, okay, yes, we do. We do have 3 first-round picks. Yes, but there's no guarantee that Howie's going to nail on those picks. There's a good chance he might only hit on one of those 3 picks and blow the other 2, burning to the first-round picks. And who knows, he might even trade away one of those picks. Who knows? Or he might even trade down and lose out on a valuable player at a position in need. I mean, it's just already boggling my mind just thinking about it. I haven't even really gotten into looking at the draft yet. I haven't even really got. That's something else I need to do. But right, once I decided wait till free agency to go over, and then go over the draft. I need a quick sip to keep myself hydrated so I don't completely lose my voice talking. But yes, with Howie Roseman, it's disappointing free agency, man. And the best moves are re-signing guys we already have. It would be one thing if we were fresh off a Super Bowl win and we re-signed some of our key guys that hit the market that were contributing factors to that run. It would be one thing if we were fresh off a Super Bowl win, but we're not. That was 4 years ago. Okay, that was 2018 offseason. Okay, it's 2022 offseason. We're removed from that. We're years removed from that. We're not that team anymore. So it's like, yeah, we're still kind of in rebuild mode. We're trying to get back into contention for the future. We need wide receivers that can catch the ball, that can run the routes, that they can block and they can catch. We need that. We need pass rushers that can put pressure on the quarterbacks. We saw last year when we played against teams like, the teams that even had a solid quarterback or a great quarterback, like the Raiders. Derek Carr's a solid quarterback, solid above average, pretty good QB. I would say Derek Carr's a pretty good QB. Our defense got smoked there. Went against the Chargers, Justin Herbert, our defense got smoked there. We got torched by Tom Brady, the greatest all-time starting quarterback, twice. Who else did we get? Who else? Just escaped my mind. Who else did we get? We got torched by those guys. We got torched by Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. I mean, anytime, even Dak the first time, even Dak. I mean, I'm not really counting the second time because we were playing our practice squad guys that final game against the Cowboys. I'm counting the week 3 Monday night game. We got torched there by Dak in the run game there. So obviously, there's a trend that we don't do well getting pressure on, pretty good to elite starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So we obviously need to upgrade there. We need to do a better job getting pass rushers. Need more help at the D line. And bringing back Derek Barnett, who gets more penalties than sacks, is not going to do it. So that's disappointing right there. Didn't do much to address anything good to address the D line. We made a bad, massive fail by re-signing a guy who's one of the biggest, what's the word I'm looking for? Who's one of the weak links of that defensive line, Derek Barnett. I mean, what did we really do to upgrade our secondary? We didn't do anything to upgrade our secondary. If we at least try, if we would have made a push for Tyrann Mathieu, at least tried to make him a valuable offer, could have had Tyrann Mathieu, Darius Slay. That would help out, but we didn't do that. That would help make it better. Not perfect, but at least better. We didn't really do that. I mean, we did upgrade our linebacking core, so we got that. So out of our defense, we upgraded our linebacking core. So that's good right there. But our defensive line, our secondary still need works. Our offensive line still needs work. Wide receiving core still needs work. We got Zach Pascal, who's better than most of the guys on our roster now. But that's not the best option we could have, with all due respect to him. It's Zach Pascal. I mean, it's a disappointing free agency. And it's Howie Roseman, again, in charge of the free agency. Put together another disappointing effort. And it's hard to like. There's not much to like about Howie Roseman at all. The only thing admirable is that he keeps in good standing with the cap. And the only thing positive I can really say about him is he had one great offseason back in the 2017 offseason. It is currently the 2022 offseason. It's 5 calendar years after that one great offseason. I still can't say Howie Roseman's done anything great since then. I can't say that at all. So, it's just, it's Howie Roseman. There's not a lot to like about the guy. There really isn't. And like I said, I really truly believe now that I'm really confident to say that he wants yes people around him in the office. And that goes all the way down to the coaching staff too. And just look at the way he's handled all these different situations. The way he handled the Doug Peterson thing. Obviously, the Peterson had a bad year that year, but at that case, I think Peterson was right to just throw Sudfeld out there, because what were the Eagles going to gain by winning that game? And then he fires Peterson shortly after that, which I think that was the main contributing factor to him firing him. And listen to some of the comments Sirianni makes these press conferences. I'm like, to me, it just smells like Howie's just a yes person lover. And that's not what you want from the guy all the way at the top. Well, technically Jeffrey Lurie, but you know what I'm talking about. You don't want that type of yes person who's too afraid to have people around them that are going to tell them, hey, this isn't the way to do. Yo, we got to do something. This hasn't worked for us. Here's what we need to do instead. They're not telling them, hey, we need to try to get a big name wide receiver. We need to try to go for an Allen Robinson, which obviously that ship sailed. Tavares Landry. We didn't have a guy like that telling them this stuff. Or, hey, try to go for a Christian Kirk, but that ship obviously sailed. I mean, maybe they did try to go for one or two of these guys, but they got beat to the offer. I mean, I don't actually know because I'm not working in the front office. I'm just looking from an outsider perspective looking in. But obviously, there is a problem there. The Eagles not making big moves in free agency. It's been a recurring trend throughout Howie Roseman's run. And that's what I see right now going on right now. It's just really disappointing right now what I'm seeing. And I'm actually going to everyone that voted in my poll, thank you for voting and sharing, giving me your take on whether or not you feel Sirianni is a Howie Roseman puppet. I'm going to end that poll because I'm about to change subjects right now. So I'm about to change subject. Yo, Nightings, what's up? Predictions for Sixers today. Actually, perfect time because I'm about to switch subjects and start talking about the NBA right now. So perfect timing then. personally think. Right, and you personally think we won't win this one, sadly, but the other games after this look promising. Yeah, based off the way we played against good teams, yeah, I don't really have a feeling we're going to fare well. I mean, you never know, though. We'll see what happens, though. But I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So now, since I'm going to talking about the NBA, I'm going to briefly switch my shirt from the Brian Dawkins shirt to a Joel Embiid jersey. Got the Joel Embiid Spectrum jersey I'm about to put on. We're going to talk first. I'm going to talk a little bit about the NBA playoffs as a whole, give my take about it. Then I'm going to briefly talk about the Sixers Bucks game at the end of this stream. That's what we're going to do for the second half of this bad boy. Okay, so I looked earlier on NBA.com. I saw the play-in bubble. It's all the graphic. So as of today, so here's where we would be as of today if the NBA playoffs started today. So if they started today, we would have in the East, the Heat would be the number 1 seed. We'd be number 2, the Bucks number 3, Celtics 4, Bulls 5, Raptors 6, play-in 7 versus 8, Cavs and Nets, 9 versus 10, Hornets and Hawks. That would be if the season ended today. Then on the West, we'd have the Suns number 1, Grizzlies 2, Warriors 3, Mavs 4, Utah Jazz 5, Nuggets 6, 7, 8 playing Timberwolves Clippers, 9, 10 playing Pelicans and Lakers. So the Lakers have fallen down to the number 10 in the West. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the playoffs right now. And since I mentioned it, let's start with that. The West, the Lakers. I mean, the Lakers, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers end up losing that first play-in game. I would not be surprised if that ended up happening. Because the way they've been playing all season, it's been disappointing. I mean, they've relied on talent to bail them out, to win just enough games to at least still have a chance at a playoff berth. But, they haven't, all the chemistry is way off on that team. It's been that way all season. That's why they've lost all these different games. Losing games that on paper they should be winning with the talent they have, but they're not. I mean, I know there's been some injuries too that have affected them, but obviously the chemistry with Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, those guys, it's just off. It's absolutely off with those guys. It's just not there at all. And obviously, I mean, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they lose that first playing game and they don't even make the playoffs right now. I mean, one of the biggest things is you got too many guys in there trying to be the guy to lead the team. And that's what was throwing their chemistry off. Too many guys that they want to lead the team. I mean, only really one guy can truly lead that team. Everyone else needs to be in the right role and play their role perfectly in order for them to win. But that's not what they're doing. It's too many guys like, I want to lead, I want to lead, I want to lead, I want to lead. If they're not playing well as a team, that's one of the things that's hurt the Lakers this whole season. I mean, it's obviously just the talent's the reason they even have a chance, but the talent's desire and thirst to be the guy instead of working together as a team, it's what's lost them so many games as well and made their season a complete disappointment. I mean, it's just been absolutely embarrassing right there. I mean, the Suns, obviously the Sun looks like they got the number 1 seed locked up there in the West. I mean, I think there's a good chance the Suns make it back to the finals. I mean, they continue right where they left off last season. So there's definitely a chance they could still get their chance to possibly win another championship. I mean, the Grizzlies, obviously, they've become a really good team now. I mean, last year they made it to the playoffs. So that was good for their core. And I said last year that the Grizzlies might have a chance to be a contender in the future. And here they are this year. They're the number 2 seed. I mean, John Morant he is playing up to par. I mean, he's living up to the hype that Zion had. So obviously they got a big star over there. They got a young team that's playing good as a team. They've improved as a team from last season. They could be contenders possibly. I mean, the Grizzlies definitely are doing it. And you got definitely there. I mean, I do think out of all those teams out west, I think the Suns are most likely to make the finals. I mean, the Warriors are back in the mix. They built a solid team around again. I mean, Steph Curry. But hey, the Warriors, I mean, they're back in the mix now. I mean, and it's not the same Warriors that they were during their super team era, but they're still doing pretty good team right now. And that's so I think they're definitely they could definitely make a push possibly. They couldn't possibly make a push maybe to the Western Conference Finals. I mean, possibly. Who knows? But yeah, we got that. But I think definitely out of all those teams out west, the best team right now, the team to beat is the Phoenix Suns, I think. They're the favorites in my eyes to make it back to the NBA Finals this year out of all the teams out west. And then in the East, I mean, the Heat, they ever since that Sixers game, the Heat have started to see signs of fall off. We saw what happened last week with Jimmy Butler, where he was getting into it with his coaches and players on the sideline. You saw Udonis Haslem, excuse me, but Udonis Haslem, well, he's not, in Jimmy Butler level of player. He is a veteran, and he did not want to stand by with Jimmy Butler. The way he was talking to him. And the thing is with Jimmy Butler, though, it's one of those things with him. There's a reoccurring trend of everywhere he goes, there's always problems everywhere Jimmy Butler goes with him and with the play. Between him and the players or him and the coaches or whatever. It's always a problem everywhere it goes. There's a problem with the Bulls, which is why he got traded. There's a problem with the Wolves with him showing up to practice late, him constantly calling out teammates. With the Sixers, he was only there one season. The main thing was between him and Ben Simmons. He ended up going. He ended up taking a max contract with the Heat. Excuse me. And now here we are now in 2022. Here we are again with the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler's getting into issues with everyone. I mean, we always mean here's a problem everywhere you go. At some point, the problem is maybe you. At this point, I feel like Jimmy Butler is the problem. You've seen the Heat start to fall off a little bit. Speaking of fall-offs, you had the Cavs out of fall ever since Darius Garland got hurt. I mean, they've fallen down now to the number 7 seed. Whereas of now, they might have to go for a play-in. Ooh, they're looking like they're going to be most likely at the play-in right now. So, I mean, that's for the Cavs. I mean, they were the surprise team of the season. They came a long way from last year. I mean, Darius Garland was having an amazing year. I mean, they might not even make the playoffs, which would be, for their standpoint, be a disappointment. For us, it was a surprise. And then also you got in the East, the Chicago Bulls, but Bulls are definitely overhyped. Overhyped team. I mean, they've made the playoffs. It's their best season in a while. Looks like they're going to make the playoffs, but they struggle to beat good teams. Remember, it looked like they were the top team in the Eastern Conference earlier in the season, and now look at where they're at now. They've slid down to the number 5 spot. I mean, the Bulls, yeah, I still think they're going to make the playoffs, but based on the way they've been playing against good teams, I don't see them getting past the first round. I don't see the Bulls getting past the first round. You got Milwaukee Bucks, of course, are in the mix. We play them tonight. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But yeah, the Bucks, remember last year, they got high at the right time, so don't underestimate the Milwaukee Bucks' chance of getting back to it. I really think the 2 best teams in the Eastern Conference, as of right now, the 2 best teams most likely are the Miami Heat, but based off of the way they've been going over this past week, they might not even be them. I think the Milwaukee Bucks and, honestly, the Boston Celtics. Really think the Boston Celtics are. Because look, they have been hot over the past couple months. They've been winning games. You had Jason Tatum's now in MVP conversation. He had back-to-back Player of the Week awards. First player in Celtics history to have back-to-back Player of the Week awards. Him and Jaylen Brown, the chemistry's there clicking. They're winning games. And you remember when they blew out the Sixers right before, it was the first time Harden showed up on the Sixers bench. Remember that game? Well, he just blew us out. Was that the first game? But you know what I'm talking about. It was the first time they played the Celtics with Harden technically on the roster. He didn't play, but remember, he was on the bench. Remember, we got blown out in that game. I did a live stream that I just cut it off at start of the second half because it was so embarrassing. And the Celtics have just been winning and dominating. I think they could really be contenders because they got hot at the right time. They could ride that momentum into the playoffs and possibly make a run to the finals. Possibly. So that's a possibility too. Maybe the Celtics, possibly the Milwaukee Bucks, maybe the Heat if they get it back together. And the Sixers, even as a Sixers fan, I just have my doubts, and here's why. We saw them struggle against some of the best teams. We saw them struggle against the Suns Sunday. We saw James Harden struggle in that game. And here's the thing with James Harden. Here's the thing. Look, James Harden, let's look at his career as a whole. James Harden is a great regular season player. He has been his whole career. But James Harden in big game situations, I repeat, he constantly has a history of figuratively disappearing in big games and not showing up. It's been a trend that's followed him throughout his whole career. So even with, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey there, you got James Harden there too. But remember, in big games, he has a habit of crumbling. Look at some of his shooting percentages Sunday against the Suns. I'm going to pull it up for a second. Pull up the stat totals from Sunday's loss to the Suns. I think that tells a story right there. So I'm going to give me one moment. I'm pulling it up right now. I'm going to read it off when I get to it. Hold on, where are we? So I'm pulling it up right now because I want to read off Harden's stats. I know he had a poor game against the Suns, but I want to read off the Pacific numbers, so I'm looking for those right now. The stats should be okay, so here we go. Give me one moment. I'm almost there. So Harden, he was cold. He was cold. Hold on a second. It was. Sunday against the. Hold on. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong game on my browser. Excuse me. That's why I'm taking so long. I was looking at last month in February. Excuse me. Okay, here we go. Now I got the right one. I apologize for that. But that explains the delay right there. So, okay, here we go. We got Harden. Field goals attempted, 11, only made 2 for 5 free throws. And this was against a big game against a top team. And you know what happened? He was disappointed. He disappointed. His shooting was down, 2 for 11 field goals. 3 for 11. What? 2 for 11. Yeah, 2 for 11 field goals in a big game. And remember, this is a James. If this was just one bad night, I'm like, okay, it's just one night. But the reason I don't feel that with James Harden is because throughout his career, especially in the playoffs, he has a habit of not performing well in those situations. It's been that way throughout Harden's whole career. So that's why I have my doubts about the Sixers in the playoffs. And not to mention Doc Rivers' coaching style. Some of his rotations he does throughout the games. Like even that game against the Cavs I live streamed a couple weeks ago. Remember, they had most of our guys, when the Cavs were making their run, remember we were up big, the Cavs made a run, they made it close. They took the lead temporarily. We ended up retaking the lead and taking it in the fourth. Remember that? And we took the game. But remember that third quarter, even when the Cavs were making their run, we still had our starters on the bench. I was like, Doc, why didn't you call a timeout? Bring them in. Bring Embiid, Maxey, and those guys back in. Okay? Because obviously the bench guys are getting their behinds kicked out there. Why not bring the starters back in? Now, fortunately, we still won that game, but it's decision-making like that with Doc Rivers that has me questioning whether or not he's going to be able to handle it in the playoffs, especially with his rotation in his lineups. And that's always been a concern with Doc Rivers. And it's been throughout his whole career. You've seen he's usually disappoints in big situations. The only exception was the 2008 NBA Finals, and there he had the big three there with Pierce, KG, Ray Allen, even had a young Rondo there too. So he had all that talent there to help him out. But even in other cases where he had a lot of talent around him, he still disappoints in playoff situations. That's been a trend throughout Doc Rivers' coaching career. And you see last year with the Sixers, that series against the Bucks. And you can't just solely blame Ben Simmons for it. He was a contributing factor, especially his poor play definitely played a factor. But, and I'm going to create another poll question, but I'm going to create, do you see the Sixers making a finals run? Now, so I'm going to ask you guys right now, do you see the Sixers making a finals run? So I put that out on the poll, so it's going to should come up in just a minute. So that's my second poll question right here for this live stream. And the Sixers, I have my doubts. I personally don't see them. I'd see them at best make it to the second round or maybe the Eastern Conference Finals at best. That's what I see right there. I think Doc Rivers' coaching style, especially his lineups, his rotations, can cost us some games. I mean, especially our habit of blowing leads in big games to come back to ball high bite us. So that's what I realistically see happening right there with the Sixers. And now I'm still on the subject of the NBA playoffs as a whole. I'm going to also talk about some other teams too. The Brooklyn Nets. Now they brought Kyrie back for their home debut Sunday against the Hornets. They still lost that game. I mean, you could say, oh, Kyrie. Well, you know what? Some people, if anybody's even going to try to say, well, it's for Kyrie's first home game, that's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. He plays well on the road. How's that an excuse at all? Stupid right there. Goes to show that the Nets are still going to have to face a play-in now. I mean, the Nets, I don't know. They might get lucky and they might sneak their way into the playoffs, but even if they do, they're definitely not making a run to the championship. They're not at all. I mean, they even struggled there. I mean, they got whooped by the Celtics. I don't see the Nets making a run at all. Maybe they make through the play-in, but they're definitely not making a run anywhere near the finals. No. I think the best chances are the Bucks, Heat, Celtics in the Eastern Conference. Out west, I think the Suns got the best chance. I don't know, maybe the Warriors maybe pull off a run, get back to the finals. Grizzlies, I don't think they're quite ready for a finals run yet. They might find a way to sneak their way to the Western Conference Finals, but I don't see them making a run to the finals. I'm thinking most likely out there, Western Conference Finals, it's going to be Suns, Warriors, or maybe even Suns, Grizzlies, possibly. In the Eastern Conference, I just see, basically, I think with the Heat's fall of recent weeks, some of the chemistry may have been shattered with Jimmy Butler. I do think maybe possibly the Celtics or Bucks might be most likely to make a run. Maybe the Heat. That's what I'm thinking right there for what I feel most likely is going to happen. But now, talk a little bit about the Sixers game. So tonight, 7 p.m., Wells Fargo Center, Philadelphia 76ers host the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, currently, we're the number 2 seed going into this. Bucks are the number 3 seed. So I'm not going to be doing a live stream for that game tonight. What I'm going to do tomorrow again at noon is I'm going to kind of give a bit of a post-game recap. I'm going to talk about some of the other things going on in the NBA in that live stream tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. So, I think tonight's game, obviously we struggled against good teams right here. And the Bucks, obviously, they're the number 3 seed. They're right behind us. They're one of the top teams. Yes, we did beat the Miami Heat a week ago, so maybe we could get a victory over the Bucks right here. One of the biggest keys is James Harden. He needs to show up. He's going to have to show up for this game right now. We're talking, we're the number 2 seed, Bucks the number 3 seed. We could be looking at a possible, we could be possibly looking at a playoff matchup right here. Or this could be a possible big matchup for us. We got to come forward and win this game. If we win this game, we could be setting momentum for a possible series against the Suns sometime down the line in the playoffs. So I think it would definitely be helpful for us to come in here, get the dub at home, use the home crowd to our advantage. You get the dub over the Phoenix Suns. Or not the Phoenix Suns. They get the victory over the Milwaukee Bucks. Excuse me. Get this win over the Bucks. Build some momentum for the playoffs. But obviously, we know, even though the Bucks, too, to be fair, they are coming off a blowout loss on Saturday to the Grizzlies. And the Grizzlies without John Morant. The Bucks are coming to this game with something to prove off a big loss. So they're going to want to bounce back against a team they could be seeing in the playoffs. And we're going to want to bounce back too. But I know the way that we've played in some of these big games. I know the way Doc Rivers coaches, his rotations and some of the decisions he makes, especially in big games, that might cost us tonight. I don't know. Momentum's not looking good on our side, but I hope they prove me wrong. I hope they go out there and they get the dub If they do, I'll be happy. But either way, I'm going to talk about it tomorrow, going on live around 12. But this game, it's kind of tough to say because sometimes we show up for these regular season games. Sometimes we do show up and we do pull out a win. But as of right now, I'm going to have to predict the Bucks to win this game. As of right now, right now I'm going to predict the Bucks to win this game. I'm thinking this is going to be a close game, actually. I'm thinking maybe somewhere between like 119, like 112, possibly like 123, 117, possibly could be the final right here. I'm thinking it's going to be a close, high-scoring game, possibly right here. But I'm thinking the Bucks might come out with the dub. I'm thinking the Bucks are most likely to come out with the dub, but maybe we get the upset. The more I think about it, I kind of feel like we might pull off the upset. But either way, I think tonight's going to be a close game. I think this means, both teams are going to score over 100 points. Maybe we get the dub if our guys show up tonight. All our guys show up and play well. But we will see what happens right here. We saw on Sunday, Embiid showed up. He did his best efforts he could. Because what did he do again? What did Embiid do on Sunday? What was his numbers? Yeah, because even Embiid on Sunday, he put up his best ever, 37 points, 15 rebounds. We mainly did from that. However, James Harden was off. He didn't show up there, but hopefully tonight we can turn that around. The team plays better as a whole, and we get the dub. But we'll see what happens right here. It's going to be, it's a tough game. I'm kind of iffy on this one. These regular season games, kind of iffy on what I think might happen. Based off, I kind of think the Bucks might win, but I kind of get a feeling the Sixers might pull off the upset. But I'm hoping we pull off the upset, get that dub over the Bucks, build some momentum for a possible playoff series. But we'll see what happens there tonight. So I'm probably going to end this stream right about now. I got a vote. Got one vote here. Someone does think the Sixers are going to make a finals run. I respect your optimism. I personally don't share the same optimism, but I hope you're right. I hope you're right. And I hope they do make a run, and I hope they do win it. I just realistically don't think it's going to happen, though. But I hope I'm wrong. We'll see what happens there. And we'll also see what happens tonight. Sixers Bucks at the Wells Fargo Center. Hopefully we'll get the dub. I'll come in here in 12 to do a live stream. I'll talk about it a little bit. Get my takeaways from the game. Also talk a little about some of the other games that are going on in the NBA. Hey, Coach Dante, what up? Thank you for coming in. But yeah, to everyone that came in, thank you for coming into this live stream. Hope you enjoy. Got another live stream, 12 p.m. tomorrow. I'm going to have a recap of the Sixers-Bucks game. Talk a little bit about some of the other games going on in the NBA. Since everyone watch, have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow for that stream. Peace.